When you say the word Indian cinema, to most people's thoughts, it would be Bollywood. Dramatic stories, dazzling stars, songs, dance, and grand production designs. But before these commercial movies started getting international recognition, what was perhaps best known in the West was a more artistic style of cinema approach, mainly made by Bengali filmmakers like Rishikesh Mukherjee, Mrinal Sen, and most notably, Satyajit Ray.
I think he's even beyond the films he's made. He's he's an institution for cinema, not only in this country, but across the world.
I had become fascinated with India, really from movies, particularly the movies of Satyajit Ray, the filmmaker.
Whenever I need to be energized or re-inspired, I go back to his films.
When asked by interviewers about his favorite piece of work, Satyajit Ray often singled out Charulata as his best. He said that if he had to make the film all over again, he wouldn't change a single thing about it. Adapted from the novella Noshtonir or The Broken Nest by Rabindranath Tagore and set in the late 19th century Bengal, the film concerns the relationship between a rich Bengali magazine editor, his neglected wife, and his younger cousin, a poet. The story is fairly simple, one of the early variants of the eternal love triangle theme that we've encountered countless times. What separates Charulata from the rest is Ray's sense of filmmaking, writing, and treatment of an adaptation as a whole. In this little video essay, we will be dissecting the intricacies of Ray's filmmaking, the technicalities, the thematic depth, and most importantly, the symbolism. At a time where spoon-feeding details to our audience was considered necessary, Ray fills up the film with so many subtle aspects of symbolism that reveal themselves as you watch and rewatch the film. For example, several shots in the film show caged birds in the house that Charu tends to. The allegory of caged birds finds reference to the setting of the film. Charu is but a bird in a golden cage. A cinematographic technique known as negative spacing is used fairly throughout the opening of the film. Negative spacing is used to compare the grandeur of the house to the lonely wife. Majority of the frame is covered by objects and less of the subject. Negative spacing does a great job at depicting the void of Charu's world, far greater than herself. This same technique is used as a tool for emotional storytelling. The opening, in comparison to the shots that take place after Amal is introduced, rather fills the screen with more of our subject, Charu. The opening 10 minutes have no dialogue, and yet these few minutes do an extraordinary job of telling the audience about the setting, the house, the characters, and their traits. Charu, like a bird, wanders in her cage, moving from one room of the house to the other, meandering through a maze of furniture, watching passerbys on the street below with an opera glass. Contrast between Charu's confinement within closed walls and the external world is intensified in the close-ups of Charu trying to catch a glimpse of the world by peering through the shutters of the windows. Charu is not your ordinary girl. She is interested in the arts, music, literature, and poetry, but is not able to engage her creative mind in the company of her husband Bhupati, who is more captivated by the politics of pre-independent India. While Bhupati looks towards the potential of India gaining freedom, he is ironically negligent of his own lonely wife. This is evident in the opening again, when Bhupati walks right past Charu without noticing her, and Charu simply picks her opera glasses up to see him. Her husband, just like the outside world, is so close, yet so far. She picks up a book from the shelf, which is titled Kapalakundla. Kapalakundla is a story written by Bankim Chandra in 1866 about a forest-dwelling girl named Kapalakundla, who falls in love with a married man. Just like Charulata, Kapalakundla also talks about forbidden romance. Kapalakundla also metaphorically resembles Charulata as a forest girl or a village girl who now lives with her husband in a big city house, unable to adjust. Later in the film, we also see Charu recalling her early life, remembering her village and writing about it. A very interesting branch of Vedic astrology is the Shakun Shastra. According to the Shakun Shastra, a crow cawing at your veranda or balcony indicates that a guest is expected to arrive at your place. It is often also looked upon as a bad omen. That is exactly what Ray uses to depict the arrival of Amal. This storm becomes the cause of Noshtonir or the broken nest. The film also gives splendid attention to the sound. The three important characters are all associated with a sound. The first time Charu comes on the screen, she is accompanied by the sound of a grandfather clock. The same sound is used multiple times in the film to denote significant events. The clock in several shots like these also depicted the finiteness of time that Amal and Charu could share. The first time Bhupati comes on the screen, it is with the sound of piano. This acts in contrast to Charu's theme, which is played on a flute and traditional instruments. The first time Amal comes on screen, it does so with the sound of the wind or the storm. Which is exactly what he represented. He merely arrived and left, like wind, breaking the already flawed nest. The story is also an excellent example of Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's gun is a narrative tool where an element is introduced in the frame and seems unimportant, but later takes on great significance as the film progresses. In the film, this principle is effectively illustrated through the motif of the storm. When Amal arrives, a storm and strong winds are present, a detail that initially seems insignificant. However, after Amal departs, Charu is overwhelmed by the sound of the storm, which triggers her emotional breakdown. The first storm loads Chekhov's gun and the last storm fires it. The film also opens with Charu knitting a handkerchief for her husband, which she soon gifts him. Bhupati never uses his handkerchief throughout the film, but only uses it in the final moments of the film to wipe his tears upon realizing her wife's distress for Amal. The opening shot loads the Chekhov's gun, the final shot fires it. Talking about the handkerchief, it is also important how love is explored in the film as acts of service and freedom. Service in the sense of how Charu embroiders things for Bhupati, but we never see Bhupati using them. The embroidered slippers symbolize affection that Charu later gives to Amal, which he had originally made for Bhupati. Amal, by the end of the film, leaves the slippers, symbolizing the rejection of her affection, and freedom in the sense that we never really see Charu outside of her house or her cage. Charu is always seen indoors in the film. It is only with Amal that we see her outside. Charu's return from the dread of the house is vividly expressed in the sequence where she flies back and forth on a swing. The camera moves with Charu. She appears static and the world surges past in an exhilarating swirling blur of unrestrained joy. In the same scene, she uses her opera glasses to observe nature, not from her window frame, but surrounded by it this time. She also notices a woman with a child in a distant window, reminding her of her husband and her distance from him. She then turns to Amal and raises the opera glasses again. At this point in the scene, it becomes clear that it is not merely an intellectual companionship, but rather affectionate attention and warmth of love that she yearns for. In the film, the opera glasses serve as a potent symbol rather than just a tool. The playful peep at the world outdoors, the expectant look at Bhupati, and in another crucial scene, the irresistible gaze at Amal. This recurring motif illustrates Charu's struggle to break free from the confines of her limited existence and seek a more expansive view of her world. When Charu rushes to pick up the opera glasses in the opening, there is a particular shot where the opera glasses swing in her hand, clashing with the railings of the balcony. We see a parallel of that shot when she rushes to show Amal her published article. In both cases, the railings block us from having a clear view of the objects, subjecting us to the idea that both the opera glass and the article, which is both the viewing and writing, cannot move from the confinement of women's space. It's not that the 19th century women did not have opportunities, but she has been continuously reminded throughout the film that the outside world is mainly a domain for men. This aspect of the film finds closure in the end when Charu proposes to Bhupati about starting a bilingual paper that they will jointly edit. In an interview, when asked why the women in his films tend to be comparatively stronger and resilient than the men in his films, Ray says, "Although they are physically not as strong as men, nature gave women qualities which compensate for that fact. The woman I like to put in my films is better able to cope with situations than men." Charu confirms this notion. Suranjan Ganguly says, if Charulata is a story about the search for the modern, then its real protagonist is Charu and not the confused men who fumble around her. Charulata is probably the first study in Indian cinema of a woman's consciousness that seeks to define itself in terms other than those prescribed by her society. Along with that, it also earns the prowess of being technically adept, with raised sense of sound, cinematography, and an excellent use of symbols and their underlying motifs. Charulata becomes the epitome of all those women of the 19th century who arrive at a place of self-discovery and stumble upon the strictures of tradition. Although we have left the novella back in time by 123 years, the ideas that it talks about still remain as topics to fight about today.